Hey friends, so today we're going to talk about something that is incredibly important to consider when plotting and writing your book. And that's something that I actually haven't talked much about on the channel before, and that is cause and effect. I talk a lot about conflict and how important it is when coming up with a story to have a character who wants something, that has a goal in some way, and to have something standing in their way. That is my short definition of a story. That is what a story is. If you just have a character who has a goal, let's say to go get a thing of milk at the supermarket, if that character wakes up in the morning, leaves the house, goes and gets the milk, and comes home, that's not a story. You do have a character with a goal, but it's not a story because nothing exciting happens. But if you combine that with obstacles, like the character leaves their house in the morning and an alien abducts them and takes them into outer space, and then they still have to go get the milk somehow, even though now they're in outer space, then you have a story. But it is slightly more advanced than that. And because you are so smart and so on top of all of your story construction, I thought that it was time that we really dig into what cause and effect is and why it's so important in your writing, and also how to make sure that you use it when you're plotting or just pantsing a book. So what is cause and effect? Cause and effect is defined as the direct relationship between an action or event and its consequence or result. You probably already know about what this is because this is something that's talked about a lot in just every aspect of the world. Something happens, and then as a result, something else happens. These two events are connected because the second event happened because of the first event and could not have happened without the first event happening first. For example, I take this glass over here, I push it off the table, and it falls on the ground. The cause of it falling on the ground is me pushing it off the table. This is a super important concept in story construction because all narratives, at least all good narratives, are plotted using cause and effect. Because all of the elements and steps in your plot are connected and cause the next one to happen. Have you ever read a book, and I've read a lot of romance books like this, where it just feels like the writer had plotted the book in advance and had written down where the characters are going to be at each point. Like, they're gonna kiss in the first third, and at the midpoint they're gonna have a big fight, and in the climax they're going to make up, and then they're gonna live happily ever after. And had these beats that were written down, but there was no reason that the characters were propelled between each beat. They kind of just showed up at each beat, and you as the reader are reading it being like, why are these characters doing this thing? Like, why are they suddenly wanting to go do this thing? There's no reason for them to do it. Or things just come out of nowhere that were not already established early on in the book, and everything just feels disjointed. It's probably because the book wasn't plotted with cause and effect. So let me break down why this is important. Compare these two stories. In story A, girl is a struggling artist. One day she goes to a cafe and she sees a handsome guy, and they look at each other and they both smile at each other, but they don't talk or anything. And then the next day, she is at an art gallery, and he just happens to be at the same art gallery looking at paintings next to her. They talk here and they flirt and stuff, and then they go their separate ways. Maybe they're texting for a bit and they're kind of flirting, and like while all this is happening, the girl gets like a huge job opportunity, and this gallery decides that they're gonna like showcase her work or something, and she gets this opportunity to go and get her work showcased at the gallery. The guy just stops texting her out of the blue. She doesn't understand why, she's bummed, but she just kind of focuses on her painting, and then she gets her art showcased in this gallery, and then the guy just shows up to the gallery and they reconcile and they kiss. The end. Compare that to story B. The girl is a struggling artist, and she goes, to the same cafe every single morning to draw people. She's like always in the same cafe, and she's drawing people, just like strangers who are drinking their coffee, and that's just like her routine, and that's what she likes to do. And then on one day, she like sees this really handsome guy, and she's drawing him, and then, she's like working up the nerve to go talk to him, and because she's really nervous, she knocks over his coffee and it spills onto his laptop. And he's like, gets kind of frazzled and frustrated by that, but she is super apologetic, and she promises that, she's gonna go pay him back and take the laptop to be repaired or something like that. So they exchange phone numbers, and then the next day she meets up with him at like the laptop repair store to go and like take his laptop in for repairs, and they're chatting and they start kind of flirting and getting to know each other. And while they're in the laptop repair store, she's telling him that she's an artist and shows him like the sketch that she did of him, and he's like, wow, that's actually really good. And this laptop repair shop just happens to be close to this gallery that the girl likes to go to, and so they're like walking by it, and she's like, oh, there are really cool paintings in there, and he's like, oh, show me, I'd love to see. So they go in together, and they're walking around the gallery together. And while they're there, the guy goes up to the person who runs the gallery and is like, that girl has like really, really good paintings, you should check them out, and shows the person one of the drawings that she did in the cafe, and the girl is just mortified by this, but the gallery manager is like, wow, that's really good. If you have other stuff, send it to me. I have no idea how art galleries work. Just bear with me on this. And so then the girl submits her paintings to a gallery exhibit, and one of these is the sketch that she did of the guy in the coffee shop, and then maybe she sends it to him, and the title that she chose for it is like, disgruntled millennial on his computer not paying attention to the world, and he gets offended by this, and so he stops replying to her texts, and then she's trying to figure out what she did wrong, and then she realizes that, you know, maybe it was the caption of the painting, and she's like, that's not actually what I think of you, like I don't think you're a disgruntled millennial, but he's still not feeling super happy about it, and so they're not really talking, and things get kind of awkward. But then the big exhibit comes up, and she shows up to the exhibit, and her paintings are in there, and then he shows up there too, because he received another painting that she did of him, or something like that, that she sent to him that was called like really, really sexy millennial. Really, really handsome millennial or something like that. And he's like, oh, now I feel better. And because of that, he shows up at the gallery and then compliments her paintings, and they kiss, and the end. So I'm not about to try to get up here and say that story B is like a good story, but do you see the difference between the events in each story? Like in story A, things happen and the different story beats are hit, but they don't happen because of the thing that happened before. A lot of those happen because of sheer coincidence, or it doesn't feel like there's a real reason for any of those things to happen. It just feels like they're happening because the story wants them to happen. Whereas in story B, every event leads to the next thing that happens, and it still follows some sort of story structure. This is really important because even though your story is meeting the different story beats, it doesn't feel like, as a reader reading that, you as the author are the one shoehorning the book into those story beats. It feels like the story is organically building on itself, and you're following real people that are doing things in the world and making things happen in the world that make other things happen. And those sorts of active protagonists are the ones that are interesting to read about, instead of passive protagonists that just have things happen to them. So that's why when you plot stories, it's always really important to not only bear in mind character goal and character obstacle, but also how you're going to string all of those different events together with cause and effect, because that is how you're going to write an active protagonist, and active protagonists are far more interesting to read about and are way better at keeping readers engaged with your work than passive protagonists are. So that's it for this video on please don't write passive protagonists, because I'm really sick of reading about them because they're boring. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have a second, I'd be super grateful if you could hit that like button and also subscribe to my channel. My name is Claire Fraze, and I'm an award-winning author who makes videos on this channel sharing actionable writing tips that helped me make my own writing better. I'm the author of the paranormal thriller They Stay series, and I published my debut novel in high school, and I've written a bunch of other books that haven't been published yet. Have you ever read a book that relies way too heavy on coincidence in their plotting? Did it bother you when you were reading? Let me know in the comments. I've read my fair share of these, and so this was my attempt at sharing the way that I think about cause and effect when I'm writing, just to try to keep my narratives tighter and just more engaging to read about. Because it's so much more interesting to read about characters that do things rather than have things done to them. Anyway, I hope you have a fantastic week, everybody, and as always, happy writing.